What's up, everybody? Welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. As you can see, not in the usual spots. I have moved. I am not even in my new place because I found out at the very last minute today Google Fiber was not going to be able to get me set up with internet. So thus all of the changes, thus being a little bit late. Anyway, we're going to make it happen for you here today. So hope that this will work for you. Honestly, this should bring back vibes of the hotel room video that I did when the Big 12 had officially added the four corner schools. That was like the hostage video situation where everything looked kind of like a hostage video. I feel like we're in a similar sort of mind state with this one here. You know, little hostagey, just a little bit hostagey, but we'll make it work. We'll make it happen. Hey. Not only do we have a lot to break down from the week that was in Big 12 football, but there's a ton that was going on the realignment front, namely what we're going to start with today and what you saw teased on the video, which is the fact that the Big 12 reportedly, according to the Houston Chronicle, is going to be opening up some expansion talks next week. And it's not going to shock you. It is not going to shock you when you find out who it is. I see a question about basketball expansion. Yes, it is going to be a basketball expansion discussion there. So you can probably figure out who that is going to be, but we continue to do this back and forth on it. And last we heard there were not going to be enough votes to make it happen, or at least make it happen immediately. So I don't know how exploratory these talks are or how much stock we should put into what's going on, but we'll discuss it. We'll discuss it in the story from the Houston Chronicle here in just a moment. Notre Dame has taken a big step towards, well, really a better way to frame it would be a step away from the Big Ten. If you were keeping any sort of hope of that happening, if you're a Big Ten fan, it does not seem like that's going to be likely anytime soon because the Irish have a new TV deal with NBC. And the thought always was that Notre Dame would not sign on there unless it was going to get them close to where the Big Ten and the SEC numbers are. So for now, that definitely seems to make it most likely that Notre Dame is going to stay put. Not that I think most rational people would have expected Notre Dame to be making any kind of jump anytime soon anyway. But there is that. There is that. Okay, I saw audio is a little hiccupy. Never mind, it's fine. Just making sure. Everybody says the audio is okay. Can I get a yes from everybody that the audio is okay? Just let me know if anything is off here. There's a great Pac-2 update as well, and that may turn into a standalone. We'll see if we get to it today because the schedule is so loaded. But John Wilner did a great breakdown of everything that's happening right now. It does seem like the Pac-2 is going to be more than likely a thing that will actually happen. They got clearance from the NCAA on that, but even beyond that, there were just a lot of details about the scheduling that's going on right now for Oregon State and Washington State, what they might do with the money. Really interesting nugget about the relationship with the Mountain West, which I found pretty surprising. So we'll address that at some point here on the channel, whether it is during the live show today. Some of that will depend on you guys and where you want this to go and what you want to hear about and talk about today. And then obviously on the football field, I would consider it just a week of contenders surviving, right? And for the Big 12, that actually means I would say nightmare scenario. I don't really think it's a nightmare scenario for them. I think the only nightmare scenario is for K-State fans probably because it took a big step toward the tiebreaker scenario that originally would have had K-State in, but then turned around and now would have Oklahoma State in because the rule was changed. And don't get it twisted. The rule was changed, not clarified. And the Big 12, by the way, I can give you this information. The Big 12 did not ever respond to my inquiry about the specific sentence. And I know others did too. I saw plenty of other people talking about they asked a question about that specific, if not sentence, nothing. Mum's the word from the Big 12 on that. So I think that speaks volumes about what it is that they did. If there were an easy way to explain that and say, no, this is why, or a clarification, they would have just done it. But they did not. So anyway, well, we're already getting some disagreement there from the chat. On the field, look, Texas took care of business, and I hate to say it, but that's a really impressive win for the Longhorns going into Ames and grinding one out when they didn't play particularly well on offense in the first half. That's a pretty workman-like, business-like effort for the Horns, who are definitely a much different outfit with a relatively healthy Quinn Ewers. That is a much different team with a relatively healthy Quinn Ewers than it is as we saw the previous couple of weeks before that. I think that much is very obvious. So it's going to be all on Texas Tech, man. It's going to be all on Texas Tech to try and keep Texas out of that thing. And even if Texas Tech were to win, I think there is still a good chance that Texas winds up in the championship game. So most likely it's looking like Oklahoma State and Texas right now, but I do have the full list of tiebreaker scenarios that the Big 12 sent out in an email literally within the last couple of hours. So we've got that. I will say it's a little frustrating that now the Big 12 really cares about clarifying all their tiebreakers. Now that the tiebreaker rules have been altered to keep K-State out of the thing, I'm glad that the Big 12 cares enough to send that email out. I digress. Man, BYU fans, I feel for you. That was a really frustrating watch. As someone that had a vested interest in BYU winning. Incredibly frustrating. If they could have just stayed out of their own way and not Pete Carroll, Marshawn Lynched it at the 1 yard line, that's going to be a BYU win. And Houston did that kind of half team thing where they play really well for a half and then fall off the face of the earth. We've seen that happen a number of times now in Big 12 play. Otherwise, they could have gotten Oklahoma State. And of course, and I see I'm getting a super chat about it, so we'll talk more in depth about it in just a moment. We did have quite the Sunfower Showdown, man. That was a hell of a game. And speaking of teams just grinding it out and kind of program victories, culture victories, it's exactly what it was for K-State and Lawrence to get that win. 31-27. So that's the docket. As you can tell, we're a little bit longer here on just the intro with everything that's going on. There is a lot to talk about, a lot to get to, and you guys can help steer the ship. You can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box to attach a donation to your chat. That makes it a super chat and puts it in a separate column for me. So it ensures that it gets read, ensures that it makes it on the show, a way for your voice to be heard, to control the content on the show, and to support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis. So I much appreciate all of you guys who do that. Could not do it without all of your support. And if you are not catching it live and you want to support the channel, you can do so on Venmo. It is just John-Kurtz-4 in order to do that. Another free way to support the channel, totally easy, totally free, is just to give me a like. If you could go like the video, I would much appreciate that. And leave a comment in the comment section just underneath the video, whether you love me, hate me, agree, disagree, whatever it might be. All of that stuff helps me with the YouTube algorithm as well. So I would appreciate it if you guys could go do that. Oh boy, I'm glad to see Stan here. Boy, Stan, I tell you what, you're the one person that I'm going to highlight that is not super chatting here today, because we've gone back and forth about this, my friend. We've gone back and forth. I don't know how much love I can show the Oklahoma State program with you still being bound and determined to think that I hate your Cowboys, and you sure do consume a lot of the content here for being real crotchety about it. But I'm glad you're here, Stan. Thank you for being here, and congrats to your Cowboys on the win. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew, this is what I'm here for. This is the energy that I'm here for, my friend. Matthew says we finna ruin UT's season. Well, this is going to be exciting. We'll talk a lot more about this, I'm sure, on the midweek show. But think about all the storylines that are coming back with this game. Going back to Brett Yormark's comments, obviously, in the summer when he was in Lubbock speaking, and said that he was going to be in Austin for that game and that Texas Tech better take care of business. It not only had Texas fans very upset, it had Oklahoma fans very upset. It had lots of talk of conspiracies going on to keep Texas and Oklahoma out of the Big 12 championship game, have them suffer this year, all of these different things that spawned from that. Now, obviously, that was at a time, too, when Texas Tech was one of the favorites to make it to the Big 12 championship game. Their season has not worked out that way, but Tech is playing better now and got to win, albeit by the slimmest of margins, but got to win over UCF this weekend. They're bowl eligible, so congrats to Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. And I think I speak for basically the entire league when I say it would be lovely if Texas Tech could win that game. I think basically everybody will be rooting for it. And it's not impossible. Much more difficult with Quinn Ewers playing, but even with Quinn Ewers, you go back to the Wyoming game. Wyoming was absolutely right there in the game through three quarters. Over and over again, Texas is really, I kept using the term, played with their food. Kansas was right there through 3 quarters. And then Texas just flipped a switch, pounded them in the fourth. Malik Murphy, Texas was a little bit different. They had fits of being very sporadic. The Houston game obviously comes to mind too, where they jumped out big. That was not a 3-quarter thing. That started to come unraveled sooner than that. But they've showed plenty of instances of being vulnerable. It's less likely to get extended stretches of it, I think, with Ewers actually healthy and playing. So, we'll keep our eyes peeled to how that situation is going to unfold. But for right now, I would like to believe that Tech's got a puncher's chance. So I'm here for it, Matthew. Bring that energy this week, man. Bring that energy this week. MJ Allen, what's up, MJ Allen? Appreciate you being here. MJ Allen, our resident Texas fan. He definitely has some reason to gloat here, man. He definitely has some reason to gloat. He says Jared Littleman Hufford got all he wanted from Tavondre Sweat in the Texas D-line. He's the one that let Sweat block the PAT, which got run back for 2 points, by the way. We saw 2 of those in the Big 12 on Saturday. I'm not sure when the last time that's happened in Big 12 football, that on the same Saturday you've had extra points blocked and run back for 2. Thankfully, he opened his big yapper. I hope he had a great senior night. Okay, so this goes back to something that we talked about last week on the show, or within the last week on the show, which was the comments from Hufford, an Iowa State offensive lineman, called Texas out for losing 4 of the last 5 in Ames. It went deeper than that, and let me see if I can just bring it up real quick. Jared Hufford, Texas. Oh boy, the first thing that pops up is a Burnt Orange Nation post that says tracking all the ways that Iowa State offensive lineman Jared Hufford found out. So wow. Okay. Lots of Texas articles about this. Apparently this really was something that Texas fans were upset about and cared about, but no one is posting me the original comments. Here it is. Quote, "It's going to be one heck of a farewell present. They are going to come in here on senior night in the dark. I don't think they really know what is going to be coming for them." That is a piece of the quote from Hufford, the Iowa State offensive lineman there. And obviously that didn't work out very well. Iowa State rushed 4. Can anybody tell me how many yards Iowa State rushed for in the game? I could count them on 2 hands. I could literally hold it up for you. It was 9. Iowa State rushed for 9 yards in the game. Tavondre Sweat is not somebody that I would be trying to, that's not a bear that I would want to poke. I saw how that went in the K-State game. Believe he was the guy that knocked down one of the passes at the goal line that would have been a touchdown in overtime for K-State. He was a load. And Texas completely really shut down K-State's running game in that one too. And that's a big part of why they got over that. I'm going to call it like the Tim Weiser hump. They got over the Tim Weiser hump and beat K-State and Iowa State when, remember, Big 12 deputy commissioner, Tim Weiser, back at Big 12 Media Days, said on my podcast, our podcast 3 Mod, that Texas would rather lose to Florida and Alabama than Iowa State and K-State. Well, to give the Horns credit, they have won both of those games, and those are the kinds of games that they have really struggled with over this 15-year, decade-and-a-half long stretch where they have not won a Big 12 championship. Those are the kinds of games that they typically lose. Ames in November, cold night game. They go out there, take care of business, and win, even after really struggling and scuffling on offense in the first half. So you deserve it, MJ Allen. You deserve it, MJ Allen. This is one of those times, man. It's one of those times, mess around and find out. That is what happened to Iowa State. Now, there was an interaction after the game, too. I saw on Twitter going around the clip of those 2 interacting after the game, and it seemed actually very cordial. And then even Matt Campbell went up and interacted with Sweat, and that seemed very cordial. So, like, after the game, it didn't seem chippy at all there. And honestly, the fact that I Google it and just pull up all these Texas articles, talking about all the ways that that Hufford found out and Texas shutting this guy up, like, that added some spice to the game. That made it more fun. And Texas fans' point has been like, yeah, we don't want to play Iowa State, KU, K-State. That's kind of boring for us. Well, this made it a little bit more exciting. That put a little more meat on the bone for Texas in that game and that win. So just throwing that out there. That seems to make it a little bit better. Maybe that was the answer all along. Just needed to talk a little bit more, get under Texas's skin. And perhaps that would have solved some of their country club program problems for a while that they've been rocking for a decade and a half. Calico Willie, what's up, Calico Willie? Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support of the channel, my friend. Calico says, "Hi, John. What a Sunfower Showdown. Do you think the Big 12 will clarify the title game team scenarios? I don't think Emon will be in, but let's get to 9-3. I do have the title game scenarios for you as per a Big 12 release. I will read them to you in just a moment. But I do agree with you. Like it's a long shot. If you're K-State, you basically need Oklahoma and Oklahoma State to lose, which does not seem very likely. Texas losing would also help. Again, I think there is a chance, but probably not likely that is going to happen in Austin next week, considering everything that's on the line there for Texas, not just Big 12 championship game scenarios, but also the college football playoff, keeping their hopes alive for that. Friday, you'll get a chance to see if Oklahoma can do it. They're 11.5-point favorites against TCU. Texas, a 13.5-point favorite against Texas Tech on Friday night. So we should know a lot after Friday night there about what is going to happen. And then Oklahoma State, 17.5-point home favorite against BYU. BYU showed a little bit of life, more than a little bit of life against Oklahoma. I should give them more credit for that. The ground game got going. So I don't know. That inspires at least a little bit of hope for me that can be a competitive game. But here, Calico Willie, is what the Big 12 says about tiebreaker scenarios. So scenarios surrounding the matchups on Friday. Oklahoma remains in contention with either a win or a loss. Texas will clinch a berth to the championship and the number one seed with a win. Yeah, if Texas wins, they would only have one conference loss. That's going to wrap up the one seed for them. Nobody else can match them. The next thing is it says, if Texas wins and clinches a berth on Friday, the following scenarios apply surrounding the matchups on Saturday. If Oklahoma State defeats BYU, the Cowboys clinch a berth as the number 2 seed. So that's the main headline. If Texas and Oklahoma State both win, that will be your Big 12 championship game, Texas and Oklahoma State. And honestly, it's hard to complain a whole lot about that, man. That would be a really good matchup. And based on the body of work this season, it's hard to really argue with that being the game between those two teams. And it is one of those games that I remember people commenting on, rightfully so, back when the schedule first came out, that you thought, like, man, it's really a bummer that this game isn't going to happen. Like, it's really a bummer that we're not going to get to see this game between Oklahoma State and Texas, because that's usually a very good game, and Oklahoma State's been pretty good in that series. So I would love to see that as the championship game. I think that would be a fun one. If Oklahoma beats TCU on Friday and that win is followed by a Texas win and an Oklahoma State loss, the Sooners clinch a berth to the championship as the number 2 seed. So Oklahoma needs to win. They need Texas to win. They need Oklahoma State to lose. That is how Oklahoma would find their way in the Big 12 championship game. For K-State, K-State obviously would have to beat Iowa State on Saturday. If there is a Texas win and a loss by Oklahoma and a loss by Oklahoma State, then K-State would be the number 2 seed. And that, again, is by virtue of the changed tiebreaker, which initially said if not all teams have played each other, proceed to the next step, which would be best record against highest common opponents. Instead, now it's just Oklahoma State has the tiebreaker because they beat Oklahoma and K-State. So K-State needs, Texas wins, they need an Oklahoma State loss and an Oklahoma loss. I would put those odds at very, very slim. There's also this scenario laid out by the Big 12. If Texas Tech were to win and really throw a wrench into things on Friday, the following scenarios apply surrounding Big 12 matchups on Saturday. No team can clinch a bid to the championship until Saturday if Texas Tech wins. Texas can still clinch a berth to the championship if 2 of the 3 two-loss teams lose on Friday or Saturday. Texas and the remaining winning team of those 3 will qualify for the championship. So if Texas loses, they can still get in if you get losses from 2 of the 3, K-State, Oklahoma, or Oklahoma State. If Texas loses on Friday and 2 or 3 two-loss teams win, there will be 3 or 4 teams tied for both championship berths. Multiple scenarios exist in this circumstance, contingent on which teams remain in the tiebreaker pool. So basically they're saying if Texas loses and then 2 or 3 of the 2 lost teams all win, like kind of favorites play out from there, then it gets real wonky. And there are a lot of scenarios. And I'll be honest, the way that the Big 12 handled the scenario the other day and already changing things, I would just say everybody hold on to your hats and hope that it works out for your squad with the way that we've seen this work out so far and how the Big 12 has handled things. So we shall see. But Calico, that's what we've got. That's what we've got for Big 12 tiebreaker scenarios as of right now. Matthew, what's going on, Matthew? Matthew checking in again. And Matthew says, no more non-P5 schools. Houston and UCF stadiums are too empty. Houston has definitely been a big problem with that. More so than UCF, although I have seen plenty of the talk about UCF's crowd, particularly. I think is it like the student crowd after halftime, which is that's a common occurrence a lot of places. K-State has had issues getting people back in, at least in a timely manner, for the third quarter after halftime, because they have a reentry policy where you can leave. So that's not completely unheard of. But like Houston, it seems like every Houston crowd pick that I've seen this year has been pretty dreadful. So Houston definitely has some issues as far as that goes. Joe, what's up, Joe? Appreciate you being here, man. Joe says, John, you're a good man. You don't whine about things like others. Good luck to your cats. Well, look, I'm not trying to call anybody out here, and I'm not sure exactly what the specific reference is. I would also say that I whine plenty. If you follow my Twitter feed on Saturday during the K-State game, I actually whined quite a bit during the game. And I'll be honest. I mean, I had just accepted defeat at 26-17 with the way that Andy Kotelnicki, Kansas's offensive coordinator, had put together that game plan with Cole Ballard at quarterback and all the Wildcat stuff and all the motion and the speed option that K-State was just getting killed with time and again. And then they come out first drive of the third quarter and use one of, I believe it was it one of those like put in the tight end tackle? Anyway, they get a tight end wide open, right? And I think it was Mason Fairchild. Rolls all the way like inside the 5. And then they score a touchdown right away after that. And it's like, at that point, I was like, man, I'm sitting here hoping for second half adjustments. Instead of second half adjustments, you just gave up like a 70-yard pass to a tight end and then a touchdown right away. 26-17. I felt like the game was over. I didn't think K-State was going to be able to stop them enough, get enough stops based on how the game was going. With an injury to Jake Clifton at linebacker and playing essentially a 4-string middle linebacker from what you would have started the year with, I thought K-State was pretty cooked at that point in time. So I was whining. And I whined on Twitter about it, and then had to go back around and kind of dunk on myself and say, like, look, I need to keep my composure a little bit better here. So I just, in fairness, Joe, I appreciate the kind words, and I much appreciate your support of the channel here, but I definitely can be a whiner too. I have my moments. I absolutely have my moments. So, Joe, thank you, though. Thank you so much for being here and your support of the channel. Matthew, what's going on, Matthew? Matthew says, happy Thanksgiving week to you all. Yes, indeed. Happy Thanksgiving week to everybody. Love the rivalry matchups coming up this weekend across college football. Great time of year. It is. It's bittersweet. Like, I love the Thanksgiving week. I love getting games Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I love that it's like rivalry games. It is really, truly like college football at its best. But it also means that the end is near. It also means that the end is basically right there. And then we're heading into bowl season, which is less and less meaningful every single year. So that's the part that sucks. Double-edged sword. You get a great dose of college football right at the end here, but then it's all done. It's evaporated, regular season gone. And we set off to the long doldrums of bowl season and then the off season. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming week of college football. I will say too, on bowl season, like, I was thinking about this when it became clear K-State was probably not going to the Big 12 championship game by virtue of BYU blowing it and Houston not being able to hang in there. And then Texas, Iowa State, obviously that result too. You know, some people started talking about bowl game scenarios. Like, is it going to be Pop-Tart Bowl? Is it going to be Texas Bowl? Like, where would it be that K-State fell? And I just found myself kind of being like, I can't be bothered to really care too much. I think maybe an outside chance that you would get the Pop-Tart Bowl in Orlando against Notre Dame. That would be fun. If you promised me a shot at Notre Dame in bowl season, like, I would care a little bit about that. But other than that, it's real hard to get very fired up about any of it at all, based on the importance of bowls in today's day and age. So anyway, just a couple of thoughts there. But Matthew, I am looking forward to it as well. And we've got the two most important, arguably, games in the Big 12 coming up on Friday. So we will know a lot on Black Friday as far as how the rest of the Big 12 season, or how the Big 12 championship game is going to play out. Alan, what's up, Alan? Alan, thank you for being here. Appreciate you showing up. I know it was a tough way for that game to end for your squad on Saturday. Alan says, John, congrats to your Wildcats. It hurts, but I hope K-State makes it to the Big 12 final. Also hope KU can go to 10-2 next year and beat K-State. Good riddance to OU and Texas. Rock Chalk Jayhawk and go Big 12, Alan. Alan, appreciate it. You're a stand-up guy. Always appreciate your support of the channel. Believe me, I feel for you. There are a handful of KU friends that I have that I think genuinely are the respectful relationship that care a lot about the program. And I do feel bad because that, I'm not trying to say this in this moment to gloat, but that had to be an excruciating loss for Kansas. I mean, an excruciating loss for Kansas. You had the game completely in control at 26-17. You drop a pick six it was a tailor-made pick six. Will Howard got away with a wretched decision. Tailor-made pick six is going to put you up by 18. And at that point, I think it's all she wrote. Like, that's probably the backbreaker. It's done after that. You drop that. The next play is Trayshawn Ward popping like a 50-yard run. K-State gets back in the game. And even after all of that, if you don't muff the punt that set up the go-ahead K-State touchdown drive, you're probably still winning the game too. I mean, maybe K-State but it would be a lot hairier for the Wildcats trying to win that game at that point. That was a gift. And you also had a gift of a 3-point swing when it should have been 14-7. You get an extra point blocked and run back for 2 by Keenan Garber, Lawrence native, by the way. I mean, and all of that was your special teams faltering. And the big storyline this offseason was KU went out and hired Sean Snyder to help out with their special teams in large part, who, of course, Bill Snyder's son, helped build Special Teams U at K-State. And now your special teams really crapped the bed in a very tight game that obviously everybody at Kansas had poured everything into. So backbreaking, excruciating, but you have a lot to be excited about because it's that coaching staff, man. That coaching staff is just so damn good. I have long held the opinion that, like, I think Jalen Daniels has become massively overrated because Kotelnicki has proved like they just plug quarterbacks in and play, and whoever it is, it's really good. And after the game, the word from Leipold was that Jason Bean was cleared to play, but they figured this plan that they had worked on it all week with Cole Ballard, like they felt more comfortable with this plan going at it. And I think a huge part of that is K-State being without Jake Clifton, who was the second middle backer to go out for the year with an injury. And they were able to just pick on K-State that way with the ground game and let Devin Neal make plays. And it was a phenomenal game plan. And then they schemed some things for the quarterback too. And at times he looked pretty darn good. So I just think it is the coaching staff. And as long as those two are there, Leipold and Kotelnicki, you're going to continue to see this no matter who is playing quarterback for Kansas. And I think it's much more a system thing than it ever was Jalen Daniels being that dynamic. I'm not saying he's not a good player. He is a good player, but I think he has become a bit overrated because of all that. And the game on Saturday to me was a perfect example of why. Like, those guys can scheme up a game plan for virtually anybody. They could, like, Andy Kotelnicki, I'm confident, could like get me open. If I were lining up a receiver for Kansas, I think he could scheme me open. We've just seen that so much. So it's going to be a battle, man. I mean, I obviously hate that. I hate the fact that Lance Leipold and Andy Kotelnicki are at KU. It's going to be a battle this series as we move forward, because I don't think those dudes are going anywhere, and they've certainly proved their coaching chops. Having said that, I am very happy that K-State won for a 15th straight year. So there is that. I did also enjoy that victory, but I'll be honest with you. I really only enjoyed about the last 10 to 15 minutes real time of that. And even with that, you know, I mean, down to the Phillip Brooks catch at the end of the game for the game clinching first down, you're going to review. And that was really, really close, man. I mean, that was an agonizing review to sit through when you think, oh God, we did it. We won the game. It was all incredibly stressful. So credit to your squad, Alan. No need to hang your head. And I appreciate you being here. Okay. If you have something, I'm going to hop into the Gonzaga story here about expansion talks opening back up with that, because I know some will be mad that we're a half hour into the video and haven't given you all the details of that story from the Houston Chronicle. But I will remind you, if you want to be a part of the show tonight, click the $ below the chat box to submit your super chat. It will make it a super chat, pin it in a separate column for me. I will not be able to read everything that's going on in the chat with pushing 400 people in here right now. So the way to get in touch with me, control the content, make your voice heard, and at the same time support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 conference realignment, college football content here on this channel is to click that $ below the chat box and attach a super chat. Couldn't do it without your support. Appreciate all of you guys. If you could like the video as well. Now we have a lot more people in here. If you could like the video, I would appreciate that very much as well. Totally free way to support the channel. And John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, another way to support if you are not catching this live. So here's what we got out of the Houston Chronicle. Story came out on Friday. It says Big 12 presidents are expected to meet next week to discuss expansion, a league source said, with the talks once again involving Gonzaga. The league's presidents could vote on whether to add Gonzaga, the source said. Wow. So I guess I had missed that line when I even read through this the first time. The league's presidents could vote on whether to add Gonzaga. It's unclear if Commissioner Brett Yormark has enough support to add Gonzaga to what is already the strongest men's basketball conference in the country. Sorry, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. CBS Sports senior college basketball analyst Matt Norlander reported in October that it was, quote, a long shot that Big 12 presidents vote in favor of adding Gonzaga, and the necessary votes don't exist right now. Any vote before June 30th, 2024 would require approval from 9 of the 12 schools, Texas and Oklahoma not having a vote. July 1st, once the Pac-12 schools come over, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, then you would need 12 of 16 votes. So you need 75% here. Yormark has made it no secret about his long-term basketball vision, and the addition of Gonzaga, a longtime member of the West Coast Conference, regarded as one of the major premier brands in college basketball, would be viewed as a major coup for the Big 12. Gonzaga would be the Big 12's 17th member for all sports except football. 2 hurdles would be how the league handles a 17-team basketball schedule and travel concerns. Located in Spokane, Washington, Gonzaga's addition would create travel strain for a league that already stretches from Orlando and Morgantown to Salt Lake City and Phoenix. The line that's the most interesting to me, I'll be honest, in this whole story is that the league's presidents could vote on whether to add Gonzaga. Like this story has been just kind of teased and flirted with for a while here. And at one point seemed like there was more momentum. It kind of came back out of nowhere and seemed like, hey, talks are maybe really heating up. And then it was back to like what Matt Norlander had said, that it was unlikely that you would get enough support. And I kind of just pushed it off to the side. Now we're getting a story that is going to be talked about again. And as it is being talked about, it may actually wind up being something that gets voted on. I didn't think we'd be that close to any sort of action on Gonzaga here. I got to be honest, it still feels far-fetched to me as an idea that the league would be rallying behind it enough to make it happen right now. Still pretty close. I mean, just a couple of months removed. This was back in August. So what, like 3.5 months removed from adding the 4 corner schools, feeling like everything is set in stone there. You know, I mean, there's no other movement that's been going on. In fact, John Wilner actually addressed in his mailbag this week of all weeks, as I'm about to bring this up, that anybody saying that the Big 12 is in any way considering Oregon State or Washington State just does not have it wrong or is making stuff up, or does not have it right or is making stuff up. Wilner went out of his way to say that there's no chance of that happening. I think he threw out like maybe in the 2030s, if we start to get the next iteration of this, then things really start to change. But yeah, it just feels like the appetite probably is not there from the Big 12, and that is a tricky enough scenario to consider with Gonzaga. Like, what are they beyond Mark Few? How long is Mark Few going to be there? Those are very important questions to be asking here. It has always felt to me like an unlikely scenario that you get the Big 12 to actually push that through here at the moment. But that's based on no real inside information. There just doesn't seem to be that sense of urgency from most that this is something that the league will absolutely need to do. Now, having said that, I'm not sitting here being like, hey, I'm totally opposed to this. I'm completely out on Gonzaga. I'm open to the idea. I understand it. And I think it would be awesome for the league from a basketball standpoint. And I know that Brett Yormark's long-term vision is to decouple those basketball rights, get more money for basketball that you're not actually getting right now. I completely understand that. And so if he is going to do that, if that's the long-term strategy here, I think that probably is a risk worth taking, because you could build up just such a behemoth in basketball and people are really, really, really going to want all of those rights. But I also understand the concerns. And if you had me in that room and I were having to make a vote, I mean, I don't know. I would have to really listen to what the pitch is going to be. I don't know which way I would actually go on that as of right now. So, but that caught my attention. Not just that it's coming back up, but that it was coming back up with the line that the league's presidents could vote on whether to add Gonzaga. Still, though, saying it's unclear whether or not Brett Yormark has enough support to add them to the strongest basketball conference in the country. So, I mean, I'm curious. Let me know definitely in the comments, that comment section underneath the video, how you're feeling about Gonzaga in the Big 12, because I've sensed some fairly legitimate resistance to that from a lot of folks here. Let me check the chat here, see what talking about the beaches of Spokane. Apparently we got some inside info here. Front runner Brett Yormark focusing on Amazon streaming for basketball. Cite your source, bro. Cite your source if you're going to bring that into the chat. Cite your source, my friend. We'll see. Nothing about that in the Houston Chronicle. And I have not seen a peep about that anywhere, but I'm not saying you are wrong. Just bring it with a little bit more than lobbing that out there and telling me I'm wrong when I haven't said anything other than he wants to decouple the basketball rights at some point. And I got news for you. If they went to Amazon streaming for basketball, that would be decoupling the rights, because right now it's all scooped up into the same media rights deal that they have and that they just signed with Fox and ESPN. Let's go to L Hall. What's up, L Hall? L Hall with a K-State question. Appreciate you, L Hall. Why will Kleiman not give Avery a few plays? I think Will Howard's played really well. Ever since the Texas Tech game, Will has come back and really acquitted himself pretty darn well, especially Texas second half and on, when he started pushing the ball down the field. And then they came out against Kansas and did that right away. Pushed the ball down the field. He made some great throws. So I would just say it's just a matter. It's not really anything against Avery. I think it's just a matter of, like, Will's been playing well in the offense. I mean, shoot, man, they've been putting up points. Like, they didn't have that many possessions because of the way KU was controlling the clock on Saturday. They still scored 31. They scored 59 against Baylor, 30 against a really good Texas defense, 41 against Houston, 41 against TCU. They've just been good. Like, Will Howard's been too good. He kind of took the job back and put a stranglehold on it and has not let that go since then. So that would be my answer. That would be my answer to that. Look, I love Avery, and if they wanted to use him, I'm all for it, and I wouldn't discount the possibility that still happens at some point before the end of the year. But Will Howard right now has played well enough to be taking over that job. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew, this is a good point, and I'm glad you bring this up. Matthew says Arizona looks to be the best Big 12 pickup, both football and basketball. Impressive this year. Hats off to the turnaround on their football program. CU falling meanwhile. Yeah, Arizona, I've said it the last couple of weeks on here. I am so impressed with what Jed Fish has done with that program. Like, they're like a year or two ahead of the schedule that I anticipated them being on with this turnaround, even though it became pretty evident last year that they were really making some strides. They went out and whacked Utah. And I mean, Utah has issues with that offense. I get it. But 42-18, man. I mean, and that's the program that's been really running this league. Those are the guys that I think a lot of people feel like will come into the Big 12 and run things once they get here. But maybe it's going to be Arizona, man. Speaking of bowls, I saw a bowl matchup. I think it was the Alamo. Like, if K-State were to go to the Alamo, that it could be Arizona that they play. And I thought, I want no piece of Arizona, in part because K-State has them in the non-con next year. That's right. It will be a non-conference matchup, even though they're coming into the conference because it had been previously scheduled. I want no part of that game. And I want no part of seeing Arizona that close together. I want no part of seeing them here at the end of this year and then playing them again next year. That's a scary, scary matchup right now. They're good, and they're doing it with a really young quarterback. Like, that's about as good as it gets for Arizona. Let's see who they finish with. They have got, oh, yeah, right, of course, Territorial Cup at Arizona State. So, I mean, they should probably win that and be 9-3. They should probably win that and be 9-3. The loss is coming by 2 to USC, by a touchdown to Washington, and by a touchdown at Mississippi State. That's the game that obviously looks like an outlier as you look back at it in retrospect. But, man, hell of a season. And, yeah, when you combine that with their basketball program, Arizona could be a really, really worthwhile add for the league. I think it deserves mention. It deserves publicity there, and especially as it comes with the backdrop of Colorado falling off and some of the shine coming off Coach Prime. I saw that he put out that statement the other day about, I chuckle because it was a statement that really said nothing that would indicate that, like, if the right job came along, he wouldn't still just up and leave. And that we're like sitting here talking about jobs for him when it looks like, I mean, they're going to finish 4-8, maybe 5-7. Forget who they're finishing with. They're finishing at Utah. So yeah, I mean, you're looking at 4-8 for sure. You're looking at 4-8 and potentially ending the year on a 6-game losing streak for Colorado. So a lot of the shine coming off of Coach Prime, and that shine has really been picked up by Arizona in their program. So looking forward to having them in the conference. Absolutely. How about the resurgence of the schools that we thought would just be here for basketball purposes? Kansas and Arizona, they've got their football programs in a really nice place entering this new look Big 12 too, where they very, very much can be incredibly competitive there moving forward. Okay, so another 15 to 20 minutes or so here. Click the $ below the chat box if you want to be a part of the show tonight. That will turn your chat into a super chat and will ensure that it gets read on the show, puts it in a separate column for me, and supports the work that I'm doing to bring you this Big 12 conference realignment content on a weekly basis here on the channel. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate you subscribing. And certainly if you haven't liked the video, I would really appreciate just one click, totally free, like the video. That definitely helps me out as well. So that would be great. That would be great if you could do that. Admiral Snack Bar is in the house. What's up, Admiral? The good Admiral. Thank you for being here. Admiral Snack Bar. I keep saying Admiral Snack Bar says USC started 6-0 and finished 1-5. Were they a paper tiger propped up by an easy schedule, or solid but crushed by a brutal half? I think they're more paper tiger than brutal schedule. I think USC was definitely more paper tiger than brutal schedule. And I'm a guy that likes Lincoln Riley. I like him a lot, and I certainly had his back in his spat with Oklahoma and Oklahoma fans, but there's not a whole lot of defending what they've done here. Blown out by Notre Dame, close loss to Utah, barely beat Cal, lost by 10 to Washington, lose by 9 at Oregon, lose by 18 to UCLA. I mean, pretty bad effort on Saturday. UCLA has been having a lot of problems themselves. Sounded like Chip Kelly really on the hot seat. So, yeah, I think it's much more paper tiger. Defense, a huge problem for them. They just, at Oklahoma, it always felt like they were a little finesse. At USC, it feels like it's turned more into soft than finesse. There's kind of a fine line between finesse and soft. Defense obviously hasn't been good enough, and then that whole team just has not had the killer instinct and the edge to get over the hump enough. And you think about like their season. I mean, like that Colorado game, they almost blew the Colorado game. They hung on to beat Arizona by 2, like Cal by 1. Like they've teetered on having like a 5-7 season out in LA for Lincoln Riley and USC. So I mean, he's not going to be on any sort of hot seat right now, but you do that a couple more times, it could get really, really interesting for Lincoln Riley out there. So that would be my brief take on the Trojans. Let me see, what else am I missing? We didn't get to the Notre Dame story. We'll see if we get there. We can go through some Big 12 games here and what actually happened on Saturday. Texas, got to give it up to Texas. First 10-win season since 2009. And I guess we hit most of the other points that I had. Their run defense was really good. Quinn Ewers, by virtue of just not coughing it up all the time, not putting the ball in harm's way nearly as often as Malik Murphy did, gives them a better chance to win for sure. And they're showing signs that the program is really, really evolving under Sark, because they're winning these like tough, kind of grinded out sort of games. Oklahoma BYU. We definitely need to talk about Oklahoma BYU. I've got some things to say about OU BYU. Oklahoma escaped, but they really escaped because BYU, who had been running it all over Oklahoma, which is one of the wild storylines from this game. BYU came in averaging around 90 yards per game on the ground, and they put up 217 on Oklahoma. Over 200 yards rushing, given up, and they were just pounding them, just chunk play after chunk play in the ground game. You get to the 1 yard line, it's 1st and goal. You're about to go up by 7. And instead you try to throw the ball with a young quarterback, and young and experienced quarterback makes a young and experienced quarterback mistake and throws a pick 6. And like, there's your ball game. And BYU fans, like I feel for you, because I can remember at least one other instance when you were playing in Lawrence and you give up 2 defensive touchdowns in what winds up being, it was what, a 9-point loss or an 11-point loss. Anyway, it was enough that if you don't give up 2 defensive touchdowns to Kansas, you're probably going to win that game, or you're certainly right in it down to the very end with a chance to win that game. And for the Jalen Daniels truthers out there, that was a Jalen Daniels Kansas game too. So this has been a backbreaker sort of a deal for BYU at a couple points this year. Now, they had 3 turnovers overall, so big part of it is just ball security in general. There was a big fumble late. Again, you could probably assign some of that blame to the young quarterback, but also just the offensive line getting beat, but just couldn't get out of their own way. I mean, it just felt like BYU was doing so many good things and should have had control of the game. And instead, you're sitting there like, man, they're still playing a little bit of catch up here late and just trying to make that work. So I would be encouraged if I were BYU about your chances against Oklahoma State this week, with the offense being able to run the ball more and showing life against a team the caliber of Oklahoma. But that has to be, speaking of just gut-wrenching, maddening losses, that has to be a real gut-wrenching, maddening loss when you have that play happen at the 1-yard line. You have just the sloppiness overall with the three turnovers. And you're sitting here thinking, like, that was our one shot. That was our one shot at Oklahoma here before they leave and move on to the SEC. Did get Texas in Austin. Couldn't remain competitive again in that game at all against Malik Murphy, Texas. And now you had Oklahoma big time on the ropes. Just watching that game, I mean, it felt like for a minute there, it was like they've really got him here. Like, they've absolutely got something. But Oklahoma finds a way to escape. So I still don't, I just am not that impressed with Oklahoma. When I think about as a K-State fan, the ideal scenario for me, I would much rather play Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game than I ever would Oklahoma State or Texas. I'd say give me that all day. I am very disappointed that the schedule makers did not get K-State a crack at OU this year. So this was another game that kind of enhanced that narrative for me, watching how the Sooners handled things against BYU. Oklahoma State, they flipped the switch, man. They flipped the switch, down 23-9 at one point in that game. And from then on, they just dominated. Donovan Smith throws a bad interception late in the first half that really helped the momentum get building there. And I just feel like this is kind of the story of Houston's season. They had the games against Texas Tech and TCU early on where they just were kind of like a one-half team. They didn't have enough to sustain it after that. Now here you add another one, Oklahoma State, where they just faded big time late in the game after jumping out. So I guess, you can take it as some positive for Houston. Texas also, right? Like, they hung right with Texas after falling behind 21-0. They come furiously back, and they are a bad spot away from having a real chance in that game. So Houston has done some decent things, but it's just not quite enough here at the end of the year. And I don't know. When you think about the future for Dana Holgorsen, I'm not sure if Houston fans are completely on board with it, even if they have shown some progress there. I guess my question would be, is it enough progress for Houston fans to really feel good about where the program is actually going? I was going to see who Houston closes with, because I forget. They're at UCF. Okay, so at UCF, but bowl eligibility is now out the window. That is the other thing that is disappointing for Houston there. If you could have held on against Oklahoma State, giving yourself a chance to be more competitive, then you would have had a crack at a bowl game by going to UCF here at the end of the regular season. The other thing I would say about this game, just from Oklahoma State standpoint, is that is kind of a program character sort of win too to me, because when you couple what happened last week with just getting, beaten as bad as anybody has in a Big 12 conference game all season by UCF, and then you start out down 2 scores against Houston, it would be very easy to just be like, man, here we go again. What is happening? Like, start pointing fingers, getting frustrated. Like, the wheels can fall off very, very easily in a scenario like that. And instead, Oklahoma State did the total opposite. They dominated the rest of the game from there. Ollie Gordon got going, 164 yards. He was just doing Ollie Gordon things. And you walk out of there with a double-digit victory. No problem at all. So that's kind of a culture win to me for Oklahoma State, to withstand the adversity built on the insane adversity from last week against UCF, and knowing everything that's on the line too. for OSU with controlling their Big 12 championship game destiny, bolstered by the rule change, right? In all seriousness, like they should have had some new life in them, being like, all right, like really what we got to do is just go win and we'll be okay. And Oklahoma State did just that after getting hit with an early hole. All right, let's give some love to the non-marquee games here. West Virginia 7-4, great chance for an 8-4 season for Neil Brown. They just smoked Cincinnati. 42-21, I think was the final, but it was probably not even really that close. And we've talked about the Neil Brown situation before. I feel very good for him, and I don't think any West Virginia fan in their right mind could really be running out and saying, like, yeah, we got to get rid of the guy after he's about to finish 8-4 in a year when he was picked last in the Big 12. But I did see at game day, we had a Country Roads bring Jimbo home sign. I would first caution West Virginia fans on that one. Like, are we sure that's what you would really want? Even if Neil Brown's not the answer. Are we sure that Jimbo Fisher is really what you want there? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not a West Virginia fan, but I would not be entirely sure about that. But if you think about the context of the season, man, West Virginia is a Houston Hail Mary away from having a shot at a 9-3 finish here in the last week of the regular season with a very winnable game coming up. So easy schedule or not, the way things broke, that was a team picked last, and Neil Brown is sitting here on the edge, the cusp of a potential 8-4 season. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. And Cincy, man, it's just been rough. It's been rough. I have a hard time finding a whole lot that's been very redeeming about Cincinnati's football season. And I don't take pleasure in that at all. That's just the reality. And Texas Tech, I think we did mention this briefly when we were talking about the Texas game coming up, but give Joey McGuire a lot of credit for keeping the ship steady. After starting 3-5, all these quarterback injuries, you were having to play a third string quarterback, another team having to play a third string quarterback for a portion of the year. That's tough to deal with and tough to keep when you had the expectation that you did going into the year, thinking, hey, Big 12 championship or bust. And then that falls out of your lap. Not the easiest thing in the world to keep everybody on pace. And they did. They got a huge win in Lawrence, and they eked out a 1-point win over UCF on Saturday. So, look, if Joey McGuire can figure out how to start a season a little smoother, Texas Tech can be a real problem. And then TCU clobbered Baylor. I mean, shout out to Josh Hoover. He threw for 412 yards. Dave Aranda, dude. Cincy and Baylor, those are the two worst situations right now, at least in terms of this year in the Big 12. And Cincy and Baylor has just not been very good lately. And Dave Aranda is staring down the barrel now of a 3-9 season. After winning the Big 12 just 2 years ago, I would imagine his seat is going to be red hot heading into next year. I did want to throw in this note. We talked a lot lately about the coaching carousel and how that is affecting the Big 12, mainly because Chris Kleiman and Lance Leipold seem to be on the list for every single opening that's coming up. I would say actually a couple of bullets dodged here in the Big 12 with the news that Sam Pittman is going to be back. That, according to the Arkansas athletic director, Sam Pittman will get at least another year, it appears, for Arkansas. This came right on the heels of ESPN's Adam Rittenberg writing that Arkansas was a potential landing spot for Gus Malzahn. Here is the blurb about it. Well, the month of November marks a pivotal time in the coaching carousel across the college football landscape. One name that has reportedly been heavily sought after is UCF head coach Gus Malzahn. Heavily sought after. Name that we have not really seen pop up yet. According to ESPN's Adam Rittenberg, Arkansas was highlighted as a potential spot with a job opening in the near future. Arkansas boosters have reportedly been eyeing Malzahn as the replacement for Sam Pittman for years. For years. Arkansas boosters have reportedly been eyeing Malzahn as the replacement for Sam Pittman for years. So maybe that is something that needs to stay on the radar of UCF fans a little bit more outside of just the immediate and obvious here that it's not going to be this year. Maybe you got to watch out. I root for Sam Pittman, I suppose, to have a better year next year and keep his job at Arkansas. I'm pretty surprised. Sam Pittman kept his job as poorly as things have gone this year, and as quick a hook as it seems like everybody in the SEC does on these sorts of things. Boy, hell of a name here. Casey Anthony got away with it. Not something I ever anticipated that I would read here on this channel, but here we are. I do appreciate the support of the channel. Says I predicted Colorado to go 3-9. To me, they overachieved and had some close losses. You can only overachieve so many times. Yeah, I mean, they were a 1-win team last year. Like that's a hard thing to do. And for a bevy of reasons, the narrative on Colorado was always out of whack this year. It should not be seen as some kind of like disaster, assuming that they finished 4-8. They did. They pushed some teams. They got close to some major upsets. And in the end, they're going to fall short of a bowl game. But if it were any other coach and they had taken Colorado from a 1-win program to winning 4 games in your first year, you would not be looking at that and saying, well, that's a massive disappointment. So I think you do have to cut Coach Prime a little bit of slack there. You may not like how he went about doing it or whatever it might be with how they have accomplished what they have done so far this year. But I think you do have to at least throw your hands up and be like, yeah, it's fair to say that was marked progress for the Colorado program. Plus they can utilize all that extra attention that they got to their advantage in recruiting. So I tend to agree there. I tend to agree, Casey. Tend to agree. Cat fan in Huskerland, aka Daniel Osborne. What is up, my friend? Thank you for being here. I appreciate the compliment on the setup. This will not be the permanent setup. Again, for those that popped in late here, like I moved literally today, and I thought I was going to have Google Fiber set up and the internet ready to go with the new place because I had it before, but then it was like you find out you need a power cord, and by the time they told me that, the place was closed and I couldn't go get it, so I could not get internet, so I had to pop over to my mom's place here to get it done. So I'm just makeshift setup here tonight, just doing the best that I can to make sure that we get the content out there. But I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys being patient with me as far as that goes on that front, and being a little bit late tonight as well. But Daniel says, what an epic Sunflower Showdown. Also, congratulations to Kansas. I am very impressed. Anyway, go Cats. Yeah, totally agree, Daniel. And this is where, look, I'm a K-State fan. I do not like Kansas, but really a lot of it's the like 10% of fans that are overly online and just live in the Twitter mentions. And that's what drives you and makes you react, being very snarky and wanting to gloat when you get a win like that. But the reality is I could not possibly have more respect for the Kansas coaching staff. They are great. They are outstanding. They're phenomenal. And that team is really impressive. And the fact that they rallied around Cole Ballard to play that well, and they were that well prepared and had all of that going into that game, it is extremely, extremely impressive. So in a perfect world, that's where it would stay. But, you got fans on both sides that drive, and I'm not saying that I'm immune to this at all, but that just drive some of the back and forth, and then it colors how you react in a moment like that with a win like that. And I suppose the bottom line on the Sunflower Showdown is which side of the aisle you're on, how you want to take what happened. Because you could look at it one way and say, hey, look, Kansas already by year 3 of the Lance Leipold era has closed this to a 1-possession game. They have closed the gap that far. It was a game where they were a drop pick 6 or a muffed punt away from winning, I think almost assuredly there. And the future is obviously very, very bright. Jalen Daniels says he's coming back at quarterback next year. They're going to keep moving in the right direction and be really good. You could also look at it, I think, and say Kansas clearly threw absolutely everything they had into this game. They lost the week before against Texas Tech and came out pretty flat. You wonder how much of that was a look ahead to K-State coming up. Was there a little bit of extra game planning going on the week before to try and squeeze in some K-State prep and some K-State stuff there? I don't know. But clearly Kansas had the kitchen sink and everything flying at K-State in this game. I would say K-State played like a B- at best sort of game, probably more like a C+. And yet they still found a way to win a night game in Memorial Stadium when it was senior day, the last day of the booth before they start doing the renovations on the stadium. All of these reasons to be really fired up and as juiced up a crowd as you could ever possibly get. And yet K-State still walked out of there with a win. So you could choose either side really to look at it. But the bottom line is it was a phenomenal football game. It absolutely was. There is no doubt about that. So I agree with you on that front, Daniel. I agree with you. Thank you for being here, my friend. I appreciate you as always. And go Cats. Go Cats indeed. RJ, what's up, RJ? RJ, thank you for the support, my friend. RJ says, after getting my heart ripped out by a 100-yard pick six, let's talk about BYU basketball. All right. Hey, beat San Diego State, another 50-point blowouts. Ken Palm has them ranked 15th. Hell yeah, BYU basketball. Let's go. Some Coug hoops. I did see that they beat San Diego State the other day. 17th ranked team in the country, 74-65. All right, Southeast Louisiana, Morgan State, and Houston Christian. I'm not going to write home about anything else that's happened this year, but San Diego State, that's a very nice win. Very, very nice win, 74-65. And I will give that to you because it kind of ripped my heart out, RJ. And I just had, like a rooting interest in BYU, but that's not my team. It kind of ripped my heart out. So I feel for you. I feel for you, my friend. I hope BYU basketball is a great season. Would love to see BYU be really, really competitive in hoops and help make that Big 12 even stronger. And maybe next time we can just run the ball on 1st and goal from the 1. Like, can we please can we run the ball? Can we run the ball, BYU? I'm getting frustrated now just thinking about it, RJ. I really am. Hiking Cat. What's up, Hiking Cat? Thank you for being here, Hiking Cat. Hiking Cat says, shout to K-State women's basketball for beating number 3 Iowa. Looking forward to their season. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Well, thank you, Hiking Cat. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. The K-State women beat Iowa for the second year in a row. And then today they beat Wisconsin 75-57. That's a good team, man. That's a good team that Jeff Mittie has. So they do deserve plenty of love, and they seem to be getting it from the K-State sports world. K-State's on fire right now, man. Women's basketball and volleyball are having really nice seasons with a new coach in tow for volleyball. Obviously, we know about what men's basketball did and football did last year. Now football on the way to maybe another 9-win regular season. And that's why Gene Taylor just got a contract extension and a raise this past week, K-State's athletic director, which is well deserved for the program that he has developed, the totality of the athletics program that he has developed at K-State. L. Hall. Don't put this evil out there in the world, L. Hall, but I appreciate the question. I appreciate your support of the channel. L. Hall says, fear Avery may transfer. Will didn't run with the ball until the third quarter. Avery Johnson should have at least a few plays. Will should start, but at least a few for AJ. Well, I will definitely agree with you that I was screaming about, why are they not using quarterback run? When the offense started to get a little stagnant in the middle of the game, I thought, you should just go to the quarterback run. Kansas was doing a pretty good job for a while there on the actual running backs in the middle portion of the game. And I was like, that's kind of the cheat code. Will is better as a runner than I think people give him credit for. And that usually with him in the game in particular is there. And maybe that was a spot where Avery Johnson could have been thrown in there. I think in today's day and age, it's always in the back of your mind, is X player happy enough? X player that's really important to the future of our program happy enough? But I think he's got to know that he's in all likelihood the guy next year. The concern would be if Will Howard really, really wants to come back and use that COVID year next year, then you might have something where you could start to be concerned. And how do you handle that? And that gets very, very tricky. I'm honestly just trying to say we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll see how it works out when you get there. There's a lot that needs to play out before then. Just try to enjoy the season for now. That would be a part of my message. Try to enjoy the season for now. This is another really nice season for K-State. On the verge of being great, not quite great, but still a very good season. And I would say wraps up being a very good season if you finish 9-3 and beat Iowa State on Saturday. So let's just enjoy it. Give Will Howard his flowers because he's been playing really, really well down the stretch run of the season here. That is my focus anyway, L. Hall. That is my focus. Michael, what's up, Michael? Michael says, I appreciate the support, by the way. Michael says, you just mentioned Aranda's seat getting hot after he was the darling 2 years ago. 3 years ago, it was Campbell. It's why I get so sick at my fickle fellow Cowpoke fans who pile on Gundy. It's a fair take to have. And I definitely bought into things just didn't look good because there was so much consternation about his attitude about NIL, which I still Gundy, I feel like you're hurting yourself with that. No matter what level he's achieving at, I'm I wonder where it could be if you just would get a little bit more on board with that. But he is who he is, man. That's an old dog. It's going to be hard to teach him many new tricks at this point. He's pretty set in his ways. So I get it. I can level with him and understand where he's coming from on that front. But he clearly can still coach the hell out of some football. Like, that's a great ball coach, and he still is able to build a good culture. I just said culture win, I think, on Saturday with how much had gone wrong for them and in the first half and then last week, and they still come back. He's still got his finger on the pulse of that and is able to do it and do it pretty well. So he deserves a ton of credit for that. Just, I think naturally for fans too, Michael, when someone's been there that long and you're not at the highest of highs that program has ever been at, it's natural for the fans to start whining and complaining a little bit and getting antsy. And then you had all the transfers, and maybe in a lot of ways it was just things had grown stale there and they needed a bit of a purge and a bit of a change. And it seems to have worked out. I mean, I'd love to know what Spencer Sanders thinks now, a guy who's barely played this year at Ole Miss, who's kind of sat behind Jackson Dart there and clearly, I guess, just really wanted to get away. But yeah, Gundy deserves a ton of credit, man. I'm kind of, for the time being, done really doubting the guy. I think he's just proven it time and time again. Every time you think the game may have passed him by and something's really slipping there, he comes back and has a season like this one. Now, I guess if he goes out and loses and blows the shot at the Big 12 championship game on Saturday, maybe Oklahoma State fans would view that a little bit differently. But I think you got to be pretty darn impressed and pretty darn happy with what he's done this year. All right, I'm talked out. I'm gonna have to tap out here, guys. But I much appreciate all the support. I much appreciate all of you being here and bearing with me with what will hopefully just be a 1 week sort of thing, and then hopefully, well, one show, I guess, not 1 week, one show. Hopefully we get that internet situation figured out and I can be at what will turn into the new permanent spot on Wednesday. So looking forward to that. If you could like the video on your way out, I would really appreciate that. If you want to support the channel on Venmo, it is John-Kurtz-4. If you're watching this after the fact, that would be awesome too. Leave a comment in the comment section. Agree, disagree, love me, hate me. All of that stuff helps with the YouTube algorithm. So appreciate all you guys doing that. Spread the word, whether it's on social media, any platform that you use, or word of mouth, talking to your friends who are friends of your school, friends of the Big 12, friends of Conference Realignment, fans of your school, fans of the Big 12, fans of Conference Realignment, whatever it may be. Let them know about the channel and let's continue to grow this thing. So anyway, I appreciate all of you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. Have a great start to your week, and I will talk to you all soon.